If you're doing that work to change how your subconscious relates to something, and then you communicate with the universe in that conscious, empowered, directed, certain way, everything would have to change. You can't go back anymore.
Spells are so powerful and they actually work. And a lot of people are like, why even use the word witch when it's got so much baggage on it? And I think one of the most empowering things we can do is to reclaim the words that people used against us as a source of our greatest power.
Totally.
What ingredients you need to make a powerful spell.
Let me talk about that part, okay?
I'm Layla Martin. I'm your host of this Tantric Life. This podcast is for you to learn about and be able to use the incredibly powerful system of Tantra in your life. I have been teaching and studying classical and neo-Tantra for over 20 years. And when you apply that to sex, love, and relationships, as I love to do, you end up having conscious relationships, the deepest, most epic and magical sex, and the kind of intimacy that you get to be grateful for on your deathbed. Hey, and welcome back to this Tantric Life. I'm Layla Martin, and I'm sitting here with Mia Magik. She is a living witch. She is here to show us that it is safe once again to be in our full witchcraft, our full magic, and to be able to work with the earth and the elements in powerful ways, to manifest with spells, and to walk in co-creation with this magical universe. She is the author of the book IntuWitchin. It is coming out right about now. You can get it wherever books are sold. And she is going to teach us today how to do a spell, how to look for signs and symbols in the universe, and what things like colors and numbers and animal signs can mean to us inside of our life. We're also going to deep dive into our almost 10-year friendship and how I have inspired her to go to greater heights of her own magic, and how she has inspired me to become the even more unabashed high priestess sex witch that I truly am. So Mia, welcome to the podcast.
Yes! Here we go. Let's do it.
So I think, the founding story of us is I lived here in LA. I had just moved here to Venice, and I had basically zero friends in LA. And we got to the point where you lived in my guest room.
I did.
For free.
Yep.
While you were figuring your shit out, as many witches do for a period in their life.
I was indeed. Yep.
And something that's so special about us that we really wanted to share here with you is how we really inspired and encouraged each other to take these bigger steps in our life. So one of the first moments that I really remember, because you had come from New York City, graduating from college, I asked you, I was like, were you in real estate? You were like,
no.
I was doing bottle service.
Yeah, like Muggle life, whatever it was. Yeah.
And at that time, you actually did a sauna in my backyard, and you were saying, this is to my memory, we're like naked, we're soaked, we'd just taken a shower to rinse off all the sweat from the sauna.
Cold plunge, the whole thing.
And you were like, I am afraid to come out into the world because it hasn't been safe, right? And we did grow up in a world where it truly wasn't safe to live magic. As women, in many places on this planet, it is still not safe to live your magic. And for many of us, we now live in societies where, in my opinion, society has progressed to such a degree that you actually can live your magic.
Yeah.
But our nervous systems are still bound by the fear of the very real torture and killing and threat of being thrown out of our societies that was rained down upon us and those of us with living magic. And that happened to people of all gender expressions. I'm really passionate now about like men forgot their magic even more in some ways, because you have to forget that your magic to oppress anyone, to strip anyone of their magic on threat of death or torture, right? And so really looking at what had happened to our world, where our human birthright to live a magical reality became so terrifying. And when you expressed some version of that in just a very simple way, like it's not safe to live magic, I said, it is now. It is safe to live magic now.
Yeah. And that was such an important piece of permission for me, watching you being such a trailblazer. We were talking about that this morning at my house, and really seeing how many women in our community and in our sphere have been pioneers of these paths that no one has walked before, at least not in the modern era. And it is terrifying. And, even for men, the part of the witch wound that they carry as well is in not being able to protect their wives, daughters, children from that torture, from death. It's like the duty that you had to take care of this woman or this feminine being in your life. You were either beaten or killed yourself, and then your duty, your one main obligation in life was not fulfilled. And we all know what men who feel like a failure end up doing is usually lashing and acting out in some ways, trying to oppress another by unburdening their own pain, inflicting it on other people. And so, yeah, it was a really powerful moment for me. And that was the beginning of embarking on a path of really following my magic. And what does it look like for me to experience and express bringing the fantasies that I had as a child into my reality as an adult. And it's been quite a wild ride. And we've definitely been on a roller coaster together over the last decade and seen the highest highs and the lowest lows in each other's lives. And that's what I think made me feel so comfortable and safe, not only in your invitation that magic is safe, but also in Tantra, is that it's safe to have all of those pieces, and you work with your shadow and it has as much importance as your light. And so it was just a safe place to be magical in every way, and a free guest room, So when you're a little broke witch, that was a really, really powerful combo.
And you really took yourself with your magic and with your spells. So I'd love for you to break this down for us. Like, take us to some moments where you actually used spells and where you used witchcraft to support yourself, because I watched you move from someone who you were lost. We were all a little lost back then.
Myself in particular. Yeah.
But truly, like, living in my guest room because you couldn't afford rent and you were trying to shift your career.
Yep.
And feeling so terrified of sharing your magic. Being single as fuck, because you had actually been celibate for
so fucking
3.5 years. You hadn't had sex for years. Yep. And part of it was that you were holding space for a high-level king. And part of it also was your own fear, your own learning your way with your body, your own unworthiness. And I watched you use your own magic and your own relationship to the universe to build the incredibly successful business you have now, to put yourself out in the world in a huge way, to guide magical retreats in castles in Scotland, to call in your king in the partnership. I don't think you even fully could have imagined you to live in an actual castle now and like support your whole community in these powerful ways. I watched you sign your first, I think, $50,000 client while you lived in my guest room. Mm-hmm. And so you made these massive leaps in all these areas of your life. And you did it with spells, relationship to magic, and connection to nature. So can you break down for us exactly how did you do that? And I'd love if you took us to like a particular spell, what that felt like, what you did, so we know how to bring more magic into our own lives.
Totally. Well, the origin of the word is actually Wird, W-Y-R-D, and it's an old German word. It's the same origin as weird, and it meant destiny, because like weird people were not going in the direction of the herd or the flock. They were following the direction of their destiny. And our words are how we cast the spells that lead us to our destiny or not. How we speak is weaving our destiny into reality. So I had a lot of disempowering language back then, and I've learned so much better now how to wield the spells that I cast with my words. If you're constantly saying, I can't afford it, you're casting a spell on yourself that your subconscious is going to believe, and that's just how it works. So one, I started having what my mom would look at as like, you're lying to people. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm manifesting. And so I would like speak into existence things that hadn't happened yet. Yeah. And I was just like so sure and so committed, and like they were happening. And so to me, they were already real. So that's a really great way to cast spells. Obviously, you don't want to lie to people, but if you can be in the vibration of expressing to yourself and to the people around you what it is that you are embodying the feeling of, that's like the best way to cast a spell. The spell that I did in your guest room, that technically I did it in the living room by the fire, but one of the spells that really changed my whole life. I believe it was like 2017 or something. And I had heard about candle magic. And I was like, okay, sounds cool. Like, sounds easy, whatever. I'll try it out. And it's about the magic in the color of the candle. So whatever it is that you're calling in, I was calling in abundance, but I wanted to experience it in a powerful way. I watched the way that you ran your life, and it's empowered abundance. And you were one of the people that told me, I say this to people all the time, abundance is a conscious vibration in the universe. It's something you can tune into and access simply by the way that you're vibrating and relating to reality, how you're holding your own frequency. So you can use colors. I personally, for this particular ritual, chose a red candle. I'm from the redwoods. That's like the deepest rooted nature. Green and red I use all the time for my particular magic, but I wanted this abundance to feel powerful and rooted and grounded. So I was like, red candle. I carved in words like abundance and power. I think it was only a couple of words with my fingernail. I didn't use a knife. I didn't use a crystal point. I didn't use anything else. I wanted to show the candle my involvement. So I carved with my fingernail these words that I wanted to call in.
So this is like a large candle.
No, this is like a little spell candle. This is like a little...
And you carved words into it with your nail.
For sure. Oh yeah, I was like, abundance.
Girl, you blow my mind. All right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, help me, I'm broke. And like, please God, let magic be real. And let me get out of Layla's guest room, please.
I cast all those spells except the guest room spell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So carved the numbers in, went to your spice cabinet. Naturally, because where does a broke witch get herbs from the kitchen? And chose the walnut oil because that felt like the brain. It felt like the transformation of my mind. I was like, okay, because at that time, you had all the different oils, right? She's got like pecan oil and avocado oil and all the different oils. And I chose walnut oil specifically because the walnut itself looks like a brain. So I was like, okay, I want to change my mind. I'm going to use this walnut oil. I rubbed the oil on the candle from base to wick. You only rub it up. It's like sending the direction, the same as we do sex magic in that direction, pulling the energy up. Rolled it in a bunch of different herbs, just chose like cayenne and cinnamon and basil and just was like, whatever, I'll see how this goes, and rolled the candle in it and then sat down and lit the candle and did not get up from the focused meditation of abundance and what I wanted to call into my life until the candle went out. It's like 2.5 hour burn time about. Sat there with it, thinking, feeling. We were talking about this in the car on the way here, how you can watch this entire world, this whole interplay of how the wax turns liquid and then the smoke is trapped underneath the fire and the smoke is like swirling around and making all these beautiful patterns. And then the fire itself is burning and igniting all of the herbs. And in this tiny place, there is this whole realm of magic occurring and the interplay of the elements interacting with one another. And I was fascinated. I was just totally enchanted by it and watched the whole process happen. And then the candle burnt down. And this was a period where you guys were out of town. And I just knew that something had shifted, but I didn't know what. And the next day I signed my first $10,000 client. And it was so magical to have just like lit a candle and use the herbs from the cupboard. I didn't even know what I was doing. And then something bigger and more beautiful than I could have imagined occurred. And I went to look up all of the significance, all of the meanings of the plants, the particular herbs that I used, even the walnut oil. And every single one of them was exactly what my IntuWitchin had told me and why it had said, choose this, try this. Like cinnamon quickens a spell. When you add anything with cayenne, it's like, right, it's that kind of spicy, like hot, fiery, it's happening fast. It's like transformation. Basil is the ultimate herb of abundance. And it was the only green herb I pulled out of the cupboard. And it was just like, I have chills just talking about it because it was real magic.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where I realized that not only could I engage with spells and these things like herbs and colors and numbers and like a little bit of these elements, like, whoa, cool. I had this strong relationship to nature, but I didn't know that you could work so consciously with it by communicating in this particular symbolic language. And that moment just changed the whole trajectory of my life.
Yeah. Spells are so powerful and they actually work. And I have to say, my relationship to magic is this, like, I do all this like wild magic and witchcraft. Like I would say I do less spells but I do magic in my own way. And so I have one part of me that's just like, yeah, and this is amazing. And of course, right? Like to make a spell work, to make magic work, you have the element of certainty. You have the element of clarity of what it is that you want. You have an element of bringing your nervous system into communion with that which you are creating. And you can do that with all of the different plants. You can do that with color magic. You can do that with a candle. You can do that with sex magic and energy, but you're getting your nervous system on board with what it is that you're creating. This makes it so powerful. But I gotta be honest, even still, right? There's this part of me that's like, yes, of course, we live in a magical, infinite universe. The part of me that studied pre-med at Stanford is like, what is happening? You know, like, ah! And for me as well, in my switch of abundance, I heard at Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, her assistant, who had an $11 million company, which was like this unthinkable amount of money to me at the time. She was like, if you want to make that amount of money, have an orgasm on top of a bunch of money. So I was living in my friend's guest room. I was paying rent though.
Okay,
I was paying rent, but I was paying rent in the guest room.
One step above. Yeah.
The broke witch hierarchy.
Thank goddess we got out of that cauldron.
The struggle. And so I came home and I was like, Andrew, like you got to go get like a few $1,000s from the bank, right? Because Andrew had money. I did not have a few $1,000s in the bank. And he was like, okay. I was like, in $100 bills. He was like, okay. I was like, make sure they're clean. And he's like, I'm going to do what I can.
Yeah.
So he goes to the bank. God bless him, gets like, I can't remember if it was $2,000, $5,000. We come home and my friend at the time is like, would you like a bag of gold coins? And I was like, no shit. She was like, I have $100,000 in gold coins.
Like rare, one of a kind gold coins.
In a safe upstairs. And I literally was like, I'm going to ask you about that later, but right now I'm just going to take them. Like, just give them to me. So we have $100,000 in gold coins. We got to put on the bed with the hundreds of dollars, right? And we literally rolled around and had all these orgasms. I was too terrified to ever tell that story out loud because it's like witchcraft and all the things in your mind and all of that. But I realized what I did was I re-imprinted my nervous system's relationship to money because I had been like, capitalism and, you know, disempowerment. And if I make a bunch of money, a man won't want me because he can't save me anymore. And like all this stuff. In a couple of orgasms, it was like, boom, money feels good. And I had like the richest man I knew in New York City text me while I was doing that ritual and ask me to be his private client, right? Like, and this is like, you know, so long ago that shifted fundamentally my relationship to money. I never looked back after that. So there's something to be said for a potent spell where you declare to the universe and to yourself what you're available for, what you're standing for, how much you care. I say this and people don't really like it as part of really making a spell powerful, really making magical powerful, is that level of you sitting there in front of the candle until it burned down. It's like, I want this. My prayer is I will do whatever it takes. I will do whatever it takes so long as it is still in alignment with my core values as a human, right? But I'm not giving up because it hurts a little bit. I'm not giving up because it's hard. I'm not giving up because it presses my egoic buttons. Like I will do whatever it takes in the heroic sense of making my dreams come true. And the universe is very responsive to courage. I'm here to let you know that if you want to stay connected to my teachings and if you want to support this podcast, the best way to do it is to sign up for my email list. Email list sounds old school, and yet it is where I share my most intimate teachings, the path, process, heartbreak, and triumph of my life, and so much of the content that I make for you on a regular basis. So the way you get on the email list is by heading over to laylamartin.com. Put your email address into any of the boxes. You can also sign up for cool practices like sex magic or energy orgasm, totally free. Heading on over to laylamartin.com, signing up with your email address. This supports the podcast. It supports this entire work and is the #1 way for you to receive the highest teachings of this path.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that you and I, that you, again, were such an important figurehead and role model in my reality, is that in order to allow your nervous system to be changed in ritual, it takes a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yes.
To get to the point where you can align with that ritual coming true, it takes a lot of eradication of limiting beliefs, of trauma in the body, of stored pain and sadness. And that was what we were doing. That's what you really opened my heart and mind to. And that's where my magic came from, is from learning how to heal the things that didn't feel magical about my life. And I think that, that's the biggest piece of what you and I have such a powerful through line and shared transmission of, is that it's about healing. Like, yes, it can be about sexuality, and it can be about nature, and it can be about magic in all of these unique ways, but it's about healing what's in the way of experiencing that magic. And once you do that and you eradicate all the old shit, then you can very easily create alignment, change your belief system, operate at a new frequency. Okay, now I can live in abundance. And, it's the same for, like, I never went back. I definitely had, a few more little like, la, 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 but it was a pretty straight up climb after that. And it is because if you're doing that work to change how your subconscious relates to something, and then you communicate with the universe in that conscious, empowered, directed, certain way, I think by the nature of the laws of how the universe functions, everything would have to change. You can't go back anymore.
The realest magic is eradicating the trauma and pain that shut down your nervous system, so you have a living magic in your nervous system. Yeah. And that nervous system creates life at the highest vibration. If you look at nature, nature isn't unworthy. Nature's blossoming everywhere. Like cactus flowers, to me, are such an example. You go through Ojai, you're in this barren desert, and the cacti are making these outrageously gorgeous blooms, right? So little water, so little nutrients, right? And nature's inclination is to thrive. Yeah. And so our nervous systems don't thrive when we have lost that connection to nature. And so when we do the healing work to restore our nervous systems to their authentic, original expression, we look magical. Yeah. It's not like we're trying to make you special and magical, and different from everyone else.
Yeah, every human is magic. Above, no.
Every human is magic. Every nervous system can be magic. And we only forgot, in my lived experience of watching so many nervous systems, to the degree that we are still carrying trauma from our past. Yep. So always a good time then to pitch. So some of the work that helped you get to where you were at was Vita and doing Vita. God. Yeah. And we're drinking play
We're drinking play. It's delightful. Adaptogenic cacao.
Adaptogenic cacao that helps put you in a playful state. It's got...
We kind of are always in that way together. We don't really stop that. We're just being outrageous all the time. But yeah, that first retreat, Layla took me to her Vita retreat for a birthday present, because obviously I couldn't afford the program. I'm living in the guest room for free. And she's so sweet. I asked her about it years later. I was like, why did you say this to me? And she was like, well, I was just being nice. You couldn't afford it. She was like, Mia, I don't think you actually need the full program. I think you could just come to a retreat with me and you would get everything that you need. And I was like, oh, yes, because I'm so alive, I'm just so tantric in and of myself, innately cool. She's right. I just need the retreat. And I don't need to pay for the expensive program, which later I did do, actually. But I went to the retreat and I experienced both one of the frequencies, something that I've shared with people so much that you taught me is, I remember asking you in your tantric rituals, did you use substances? Was there medicine involved? And you were like, no, often we would just speak truth. And you would just get to the point, down, every thought that you have till the very bottom. And then you're free. You experience this liberation. Yeah. And I got partnered with a girl who fell asleep during the demo for one of our most powerful rituals. And I used that. And I spoke to her and I said, I feel terrified that you don't know how to hold space for me, that you don't actually care about what we're doing. You fell asleep during the demo. So of course, then she's triggered and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is happening. And now I feel afraid to hold space for you and this whole thing. But we just kept going deeper into truth. And that breathwork practice, it was the womb breathwork, that was one of the most powerful psychedelic journeys I've ever had in my entire life. And it was just breath with one sister holding space, and Layla in her full, she has this high priestess bliss face that's just And she just looks around like this, like in total bliss at people like having massive rage and energy orgasms and all kinds of orgasms. And it's like my favorite Layla archetype. And that experience of witnessing how the truth liberated me, how breath was so entheogenic and psychedelic. I had deeper visions that particular ceremony than I've had in any ayahuasca journey, any other psychedelic experience that I've had. It was profound. And then we started doing all of these incredible rituals together in sisterhood. And I just remember feeling so changed by that experience. Like I was a different woman coming home from that, just from what I'd seen, how I'd seen you showing up, like realizing who you were as a teacher. And that's like one of those gifts, you know, I think that that's something in even in spiritual communities today, and that we still experience. And luckily we really moved through this together after that experience, but is that you can know someone and you can love someone and you can like experience their coolness and you're like, hey, yeah, I'm into you, whatever. But you don't get to see their real gifts in the world and how they are as a teacher and what they're really sharing. And I came home and I remember sitting next to you on the couch and being like, how do you do it? How do you do that? And then come back and operate in this muggle world. And you're like, well, being a tantrika is a lot like hiding in plain sight. And as someone who works a lot with fox medicine and that being the exact message of the fox, and a fox being the first animal that I ever skinned when I found a roadkill fox dead on the road, and I like skinned it and had this whole past life memory and like remembered how to skin an animal, which I'd never done before. I was like, whoa. And you telling me that's what it means to live in our full aliveness is like, we're right here. We're right here. We're not going anywhere. And not everyone's going to see us, and they don't have to. That's not the point. The point is to exist in your own mystical and magical world. And that was such a gift to me in that. Then I'm sure you can share this next part of it. But I was like, girl, I want you to show up, like show the rest of our friends who you are as a teacher. We need this. I need more of that. I can't leave that behind in Costa Rica. I need that to be here in my life, or I'm not going to survive. Help. And I really asked you to show your friends who you are as a teacher. And it became Pussy Church Sunday morning brunch and sex magic every Sunday. And you and I doing so many beautiful rituals together at home. And it really, I think that was a huge shift in the entire thread of our conscious community of like bringing a new level of magic and ritual and deep healing work and the intimacy that comes from doing that together into our friend group and our community.
Yeah. You bring up 2 points that I want to talk to. One is when someone goes through spiritual awakening or a connection to their magic, a connection to energy, there is this phase usually where it's like, I don't want to be back with the other people anymore. Oh God, don't make me go back with them, right? Like the people from like middle school and like, oh wow, God, and like Costco and like kill me now, right? And those like dumb LA parties with like all the posturing and the cocaine and the champagne, like, right? And I just want to honor that period.
Yeah, nightmare.
And usually there's a period, you know, in the spiritual world where someone's like, I wear all white and I'm sober all the time and I do all my perfect chants in exactly the right directions. And like, I don't want to talk to anyone who's not vegan, you know? And there's a period, whatever that looks like. For us, it was a little different because we be high priestess witches. So you're like, I don't know if I want to hang out with someone who doesn't put their menstrual blood on their face. Have an orgasm with a tree.
Yeah.
Like, you have an orgasm with a tree in the last week? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can be friends.
Yeah. And then there is this maturing, right? And so I honor that phase. I went through that phase too in my own way. Then when you come back to the world and there's this next level of magic is everywhere.
Yep.
And everyone's God, truly. Not as like telling yourself that so you can like, I think we got to honor every phase that we go through. And so when you're in that phase of like, keep me the fuck away from like the people who aren't living their magic right now, and keep me away from people who are like really engaged in their masks. And maybe they are doing stuff that would distract me. Maybe it would pull me back into unconscious partying and drug use. Maybe it would pull me back into Tinder culture, whatever. And like, I need a break, right?
Yeah.
So I honor that. And there is another phase after that, which is, can I see and feel all that magic and all that divinity in every dimension of the universe. To me, this is goddess devotion, right? I'm not just devoted to the one aspect of her. I'm devoted to all of her, which includes those LA parties and includes the people doing unconscious things and it includes Tinder, right? And so can I then find my magic in all of that? But that is a phase I find that comes usually later in someone's development of then being able to connect to everything.
Yeah.
You gave me one of the greatest gifts of my life by calling me forward because I was hiding as a high priestess. I was hiding as a tantrika in my community.
Yeah.
Because, and Andrew asked me this at one point. He was like, why are you so afraid to do this with your friends? And I was like, because I grew up as a little girl where witches ate babies and everyone was terrified of them. Yeah. And they lived alone in the woods because no one wanted to be friends with them.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not just that what I am is scary to be, which is true for all of us. Like what you really are is usually the hardest thing to be. But what I was, it's not that there wasn't even a name for it growing up. Yeah. Is that we got burned and killed and shunned from society, which is even more terrifying. Yeah. It's like I might take death before I would take a lifetime alone, getting invited to 0 parties, having 0 dates because you're such a weirdo, you know, like that's what
because you're yourself.
Because you're yourself.
Yeah.
That's what we got told as little girls, right? And so you got to be like the pretty princess that everyone wanted to hang out with just a teeny touch of sparkle in your eye. That was just the right amount. But should you actually bust out the full witchcraft, who'd you get to be? Ursula, the dark, like, witch of the underworld, the octopus,
Yeah.
So that's ingrained in me, right? On top of all the fears of like, if I start being erotically unleashed, my married friends are going to freak out.
Yeah.
They're going to feel
no one's going to feel safe. Yeah.
All of that. So I had layers upon layers upon layers. And you were like, no, like we need this. And I was like, all right. And as I started to express myself more and more and more, I was like, wow, like my magic is what my friends want.
Yeah.
It is what the world is starved for. And this is what I see now. So many of our communities and cultures, by no means all of them, have leapt forward, and we can actually taste our hunger again for women who know that they're witches, which to me is women who know that they're magic.
Yep.
And wit was the word for truth. Witches are the people who know the truth.
Yeah.
And so when we say witchcraft and all these ideas get conjured, I'd love if we could just trade out all those ideas that God fed to us and take on people who know the truth. And people who know the truth also can be super connected to the earth, super connected to orgasm and to the magical functioning of the universe and live in harmony in this beautiful way. So I started throwing parties. I started doing lots of practices more collectively. And I remember one time specifically with you, we're out in my backyard in a circle doing sex magic. And I had resisted identifying as a witch because I was like, no, please. I come from lineage.
Yeah.
I study Sanskrit. I had teachers, not one of those nature-based freaks with no training or whatever my own conditioning was, right? That witches are silly. Like, they're not evil or wrong, but they're silly.
Yeah. Not to be taken seriously.
Not to be taken seriously, which is the other conditioning, right? You're either like so terrifying or you're a joke.
Yeah.
Right? Which, interestingly enough, is the same conditioning for women.
Fascinating how those two are linked.
We're terrified of your deep womb power, all your intuition and magic and authority and sexual force, or you're a fucking joke.
Yeah.
Right? And like, oof. So, releasing that, right? We're standing outside in my yard in a circle. We're starting to do sex magic. And I was like, holy shit, I guess I'm a witch.
Yep.
Whatever that was. And what is fascinating too in the history of all of this is I learned that some of the most ancient goddess traditions of sacred power come from Anatolia, what is modern day Turkey. And some of the most ancient temples they've ever found, Göbekli Tepe, from like 10,000 years ago.
I think even longer than that. Yeah.
wild forms of worship, right? And they discovered that it wasn't what, anthropologists had thought, which is we developed agriculture. And then once we started living together in community, it's like we developed religion because we had to like cope with each other.
No.
It was actually spirituality that drove people to discover agriculture because they wanted to return to the same temples over and over again. They wanted to be close to the temples they had built. That spirituality is such a core part of human expression that it predated our agricultural development. And that this is what humans do. We build temples, we worship the divine, even our most ancient ancestors. So much of that goddess worship came from Anatolia. Those people spread and split and moved, and some of them became the Tantrics in India. Some of them became the Magi in Iran and Persia. And then some of them became the high priestess leaders of the ecstatic rites in the Greek Empire. And for me, without realizing it, I had always carried those two lineages, Tantrika and presider of the ecstatic rites, aka a high priestess, aka a witch. And a lot of people are like, why even use the word witch when it's got so much baggage on it? And I think one of the most empowering things we can do is to reclaim not only the parts of ourselves that we were told were terrifying and were threatened out of us, but to reclaim the words that people used against us as a source of our greatest power.
Totally. And, truth, wisdom, wit, vice, all of these words, it really is your truth is your wisdom. For me, I think that we experience connection to the truth through how we learn lessons in our lives. So everything that you're doing is going to show, like, either reward you for following your intuition and doing what it was that you were guided to do, or teach you a lesson because you didn't follow it. Or there's I was speaking with a Greek priestess last night, actually, and she reminded me that asteria is the word for stars, and the word disaster, asteria, star, disaster was originally a misfortune that was placed upon you by the stars to help support your awakening, to help support your growth and your transformation, for you to rise ever higher. And so even those disasters in our lives, they give us the wisdom that we turn knowledge into an embodied way of being, and that is our wisdom. And I think about, in the modern day, imagine if everybody all of a sudden was like, kill all the doctors, like, let's take them down. And it's like, wait a second, these are the people, and you're talking about the temples and the agriculture. And one of the things that has become abundantly clear in the historical research that I have engaged in is also that relationship to agriculture was our first experience with medicine. I was just in Tanzania and walking through these beautiful prairies with a Maasai guide, and almost every plant, he's like, okay, we use this for gonorrhea, and we use this for low blood pressure, and we use this if you have a cough, and we use this for malaria, and we use, every plant. And I said, how? He goes, well, this one you chew, and this one you make a tea out of, and this one you steam, and this one you just, every single plant had a use, had medicinal qualities, had different ways of becoming a potion or a tincture. And those plants, that agriculture, was because food and herbs were our first medicine. How we were healing ourselves was through our food. And so we needed to learn how to understand both the cycles and seasons of the moons and watching the rains and the original divination. And this is one of our fun things with augury. So Layla taught me this epic ritual to do on New Year's Day, where you do all of the things on New Year's Day that you want to come to fruition over the next year. Now, that is actually the inverse of the original meaning of augury. The original meaning was divination through nature. What does this particular shape of flock of birds mean? What do these specific cloud formations mean? When the waves crash this way or when the rains come that way, what does it mean? What is the significance? And we've turned, and I've used augury, we've both used augury to manifest so many magical things. And so we've turned and we become the divination in augury. It's like, okay, I'm going to show the universe what I want the message to be for my coming year.
Which was still a part of it originally. So you looked for the signs and symbols during the day to tell you what the upcoming year was going to be like.
Right.
and you actively lived what you wanted
Exactly.
as the living divination, which is why we say Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Because it was such an important day for imprinting the blueprint of the whole year
What was
that you would
coming.
say to everyone, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Because if you have a good day today, you'll have a good year.
Exactly. And so that was the original divination. That's the first science on earth, is that augury, is that studying of the symbolic nature. And then even astrology, the oldest like real scientific body of work, is older than 3000 BC. And it all came from nature. That's how we learned how to heal ourselves, how to grow food, how to be able to tend to plants and animals, how to thrive. It's like you said at the beginning, nature is thriving. She's not worried and she's not in competition. And I think that for me, the lineages and the teachings, and really, as you know, like you're one of my only human teachers, because I just didn't feel welcomed in a lot of places. I didn't feel safe to be all of myself, to have a fuck ton of just raw primal power. Like that's just how I am. That's the way that I've always been. And you're one of the only people that I remember you like, oh, that's so funny. I don't know why people get triggered by you. I just don't get triggered by you. Like we live together so easily. It's like, yeah, because there is a relationship that aliveness itself has and cultivates and allows within us when we're attuned with it, that you connect like nature. It's like, oh, I don't feel threatened by your power because I know my own. And that, I think, is really the biggest piece about these old rituals and the old ways and connecting to the truth and the wisdom, is that we all have this infinite source of power inside of ourselves, and everyone's expresses differently. Some people have softer power than you and I have, and that's great. Doesn't make it any less. It's still perfect. Like there's roses and there's jasmine and there's redwood trees and there's mugwort, like everybody plays their role, and it's so important. And I just think that, this reclaiming this word and like wearing this hat being a joke to some people, we were talking about this morning, like, this is a joke. This is a caricature for me to wear this hat. I was chosen by this hat. I was chosen by the archetype of witch, when I myself used to say like, oh, no, I'm a wizard like Harry Potter. I'm not a witch. And this hat chose me and said, actually, no, I need someone to embark upon this mission for me, and I choose you, and you're doing it. And, you watched that journey happen. And it went from, feeling totally lost and just like wanting to make my fantasies into my reality, to wearing this hat and experiencing a compulsion and a driving force that was so much larger than me, really saying, this word must be reclaimed. Its truth, the wisdom of it, the way we once worked with nature must be reclaimed. We must return some of these ancient ways to the modern day, and you're the one I want to do it. And, I couldn't have done it without all the witches in my life. And it was really, she like grabbed me by the seat of my pants, was like, let's go, honey. And I've been on a pretty wild ride ever since. And it's hard to reclaim that word, but I think it's very obvious that the powers that be and how our world is functioning by hiding from our magic, by encouraging masks and shrinking and trying to fit in and making sure you belong and never rocking the boat and not being too powerful and worried about, will a man love you, or, will your friends accept you, or will you be able to build a business? It's all just such bullshit that is trying to keep us down. And it's been such an incredible gift just to see what I was capable of creating if I just kept continuously committing myself to rising up.
I created this mastermind for couples because it is the experience that I wanted for me and my beloved. I was like, where can we learn Tantra together? Where can we become masterful at sacred sexuality together? And beyond that, where can we get the same education in how to communicate at a ninja level, and how to create emotional safety for one another, and on how to heal on the deepest levels whatever wounds keep us from staying in love over a lifetime? That's why I made this mastermind. It is going to be super fun because you get to go on the sexual adventure of a lifetime. I'm talking majestic European castles, beautiful nature experiences where you will be trained step by step in how to create erotic rituals and how to make love in an energetic and advanced spiritual way. It is You'll also get 6 months of in-person classes on relational skills and tools, and also erotic mastery. Everything from how to touch each other in the most exquisitely sensual way, to how to have the most incredible energy orgasms together, to just how to say difficult things in a deeply loving way. You are going to get the advanced relationship training of a lifetime. If this is something you're interested in, you can go ahead and check it out at laylamartin.com/tantric mastermind. And for those of you who are just listening to the audio version, Mia is wearing a giant red witch hat. And this is the thing about magic. It is the most fun, most outrageously good time. But it's not a fucking joke.
No.
And so much of the true power of the universe has been hidden by our egos teaching us or other people to laugh and dismiss what is actually the path home to so much goodness, to the missing elements in so many of our lives. Yeah. So speaking of manifesting everything you want, I would love to hear how you did the sigil to call in your dragon king.
Okay.
After 0 sex for 3.5 years.
I beg your pardon. It was just under 3 years total. Thank you very much.
Felt like 3.5 to me.
Felt like longer than that. Yeah. Layla, I'm so lonely. I know. Yeah, I know.
And I would love for you to also then teach us a little bit about how to read some of the signs and symbols in our lives, a little bit about color magic, a little bit about numerology, a little bit about the plants as well.
Totally. Well, the biggest thing, it wasn't really actually about the sigil calling bear in. The work that I did, which is a principle of IntuWitchin and plays into all of these same elements and aspects of color and nature and divination in general, IntuWitchin and how I see it is an exploration of the law of correspondence. As above, so below, as within, so without. Everyone's familiar with the law of attraction for manifestation. Great. There are these 12 universal laws recorded on the emerald tablets of Thoth, rewritten in the Kybalion by the 3 initiates in a Greek tradition.
And these are all ancient texts on how to do magic from the Egyptian
and
tradition.
The universe
through
works.
The Greek Empire.
Exactly. Yes. So like obviously all of those empires were sort of like crumbling and conquering one another. Egypt into Greece, into Rome. The Roman Empire is still alive and well. It's called the Catholic Church, just so we're all clear. That empire never actually crumbled. They're doing just fine with all their gold in the Vatican. But nobody really talks about the law of correspondence as a path to manifestation. And it has been the greatest one for me. So I worked on my inner masculine more than anything else. You saw me. I was like, okay, what does it mean for me to be in the masculine? I had such an amazing relationship with Andrew, was like really cultivating my connections with brothers and men in my life who I felt safe, who I could count on. And so sigil magic is magic through symbols. It's creating an intentional magical symbol. And I certainly did that. But how I was really working this process of manifesting a man was seeing all the ways, primarily living in Layla's guest room, that I was not actually showing up as the kind of man I would want. So
really quick, can you just tell us what is the law of correspondence so we can then understand your process?
Yeah, the law of correspondence is as above, so below, as within, so without. It means that like there is a connection in the microcosm to the macrocosm,
right? No
matter what is happening.
Which changes your fundamental understanding of manifestation, because it's not like, oh, I'm begging the universe to give me what I want.
Right.
And if the universe doesn't give me what I want, it's because I'm flawed or there's something wrong with me or the universe doesn't love me or other people are better than me.
Right.
The universe is actually teaching you to be the highest vibrational
match
by becoming that in yourself. So instead of the universe being like, I'm going to give you money, the universe is like, learn to be abundance.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what I wanted to do was figure out how to provide for myself. It's like, oh, if I expect a man to like have a home to welcome me into and like take care of me and all of those things, which like that certainly is not happening. I mean, taking care of me in my own way, but I'm definitely my own sugar daddy, which is really great. But I needed to work on my own internal structures and stability. So one of the biggest things was I was living in your guest room. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? If I expect a man to have a house, like I need to have my own house. I need to have a place where someone can like be welcomed in.
Gonna stop relying on Layla daddy.
Right? Yeah. Like it was really good while it lasted, but I was like, I want mommy not to be daddy anymore. Yeah. And we had so many different archetypes. There's mostly sister, but there was still some like mommy and daddy, you and Andrew. I'm like, help Now Andrew is my business daddy and is my CMO. So that's been a really great,
Yo.
yeah. So thank God all the transitions have occurred. But what was really most important for me was, okay, if I want in my sort of macrocosmic external reality, I want to witness a powerful masculine man, but I'm just completely in my feminine. I can't rely on myself. I'm floating around and doing my spiritual practice for 9.5 hours a day. And like, this is just what I'm doing and la, la, la. There was no discipline. There was no structure. There were no foundations really to rely upon. So my big thing was, I'm going to get myself a house. And I got myself a 4-bedroom house. This was like in, periods of lots of abundance flowing into my life for the first time, which was amazing. Again, all that work played in was matching myself to the vibration of abundance, matching myself to the vibration of worthiness, all of these little pieces. And that was the biggest one, is like, I cannot expect a man to come into my life here in Layla's guest room. I need to be able to like open and welcome myself to someone, because that's what I would want in a man. And I did that. I got this big house, furnished it, 4 bedrooms. I was like spending more money than I'd ever even imagined having before. And it was so beautiful and so amazing. And I met him within a month. And there were other little things that I did. Like I had this bed custom made with these cool cubbies underneath it. And I crystal gridded the whole bed. And I gridded all obelisks on the masculine side. And I gridded all spheres on the feminine side. And the first time Bear walks into my room, he looks at all the obelisks and he's like, oh, are those obelisks? And I was like, yes, as a matter of fact, they are. He's like, oh, that's so cool. I just had this reading the other day and the woman told me my symbol is an obelisk. And I was like, great. So there were
And Bear's your partner.
And Bear's my partner. Yes, sorry. 4 years later, after the 3 years of celibacy, we're still going strong. And so there were a lot of things like that where you don't realize how small some little piece. Oh, I just put this particular shape of crystal. Yeah, but I called in a person who that is how he stands, is that pillar of masculinity. So that was really the biggest piece for me. And what I would recommend if for anyone, manifesting, calling in partnership and wanting to do it in a way that creates a match that's beyond just wound mating and into like, okay, we're in this container and arrangement that's going to help us rise synergistically as, greater than the sum of our parts, is looking at where do I not provide for myself the things that I would want a partner to provide for me? Where do I not show up for myself? If I really want someone to worship me, do I worship myself? Do I cherish myself? If I really want to feel whatever it is, it's the same as abundance, right? It's like matching that frequency. So that was a really big piece for me. And I did also use the color magic, the symbols. So like
Hold on really quick.
Okay.
I just want to emphasize this point for everyone because I think it's a very important point, that everyone is slightly different in what they're looking to have filled inside of themselves from a partner or from a man, right? And so for you, because there really was this like, I want a big, strong man to come and like take care of me and provide for me, right? That was what was important for you to step up and embody.
Yeah.
For me, it was a lot more, I want to be loved because I think I'm unlovable. I want to feel worthy because I feel unworthy.
Yeah.
I want someone to show me that I'm beautiful because I don't feel beautiful enough myself. So my path to partnership was a lot more about owning my worthiness, owning my beauty, loving every part of myself. So I just want to articulate that because you have to be listening and trusting the intuition and trusting the magic to also show you what your unique path is.
Totally. And mine underneath that, I mean, like the provider, that was just an external expression. And as we know, like I make more money than my partner. So it's okay that I'm still the provider. It was about me being able to hold the masculine pillar for myself. Yeah. But what I was really working on in terms of those values, like you were just sharing with me, was being able to be loved for being myself, being accepted. And so that was the big piece, was I didn't accept myself in my floaty, flowy, feminine energy because there was no masculine container. So I became my own masculine container so that I could feel like I accept myself, I accept my wild spirituality, I accept my tantric nature, I accept my total, absolutely like primal, powerful, sexual, like dark and light, balance. You and I are not those like love and light witches, because I just don't think that that's I don't think that it's real. I just don't think that it's possible to just.
We're also just grittier. I don't know.
Exactly.
Some
like
people really
we like
are
grit.
just like, oh, love and light frequency.
I'm
like,
are they just hiding? I don't know.
I like hanging out with the like playful, like underworld cave beings. Sometimes
Exactly.
I want to play poker with like the shady characters of the universe, and I love love and light. Like I love it all.
I mean, I love love and light. I just acknowledge my darkness, and I learned that so much through Tantra and being able to like, hey, can I do this Tibetan demon feeding ritual and like let my demons be here and be acceptable and tell them like, hey, it's okay. You're safe to be nourished as well. The same as my high power and my light. And then you literally alchemize any power that they had over you.
Yeah. So just to slow down there so you don't think we're doing Tibetan demon feeding rituals. And your imagination's running away with you as it's wont to do. So in a Tibetan demon feeding ritual, you literally feel whatever your inner demons are, right? So for most of us, self-hatred, self-rejection, obsession with poverty, whatever it is that is ailing us, and you literally put it out in front of you. And you let it speak to you and you see it, and eventually you feel into the heart of what it is that it truly wants, right? So for me, I did this the other day with a part of me that was being really self-hating. I haven't experienced like mental self-hatred in a long time, but I used to live with it every second of every day. And this sort of self-hating vibration came back into my mental field. So I put it out in front of me, right? And as it expressed, it literally became a super young part of my inner child, right? My mom became a single mother very early on, and she couldn't take care of me in the 1980s all day, every day, and go to work so that we didn't starve. And so I got passed around a bunch as an infant, and I was separated from my mom, abandoned by my father. So there was this really deep wound in me that can flip to self-hatred. And when I relate to it as self-hatred, it is a demon. When I relate to it as the tiny infant who was separated from her mother and crying alone a lot with people who didn't know what to do with her in the 1980s, all of a sudden I can feed my demon, right? And my demon was looking for love. And so now I'm able to give her what she's always wanted, which is the love and somatic warmth that she didn't get at the time, right? So that is feeding my demon. And so instead of being like, oh, I'm all love and light, right? I'm like, what is it within me that is causing this intense heaviness? Oh, look, those are just disconnected forces that are looking for love. I understand that. And then you can feed your demons.
And it's a very healing, nourishing, profoundly alchemical process.
Yes.
To not negate or shame your own darkness and shadows. And I think that that's just a piece that, we're taught too often to think that our sadness or our smallness or anything that we feel shame about, we should shame it and make it feel wrong and bad. And so I really loved the practice of not doing that and letting all of those parts of myself be welcome and have a safe space to be heard and to be expressed. So what I was working through with myself was all of those particular demons that told me, like, full inner witch hunter, like, who the fuck do you think you are? You're disgusting. You're pathetic. Like, this is not acceptable. No one will ever love you. No one will ever accept you. You are not safe to be you. Someone's going to come and get you. I had like, just, you and I both dealt with that, a lot of that fear of like, someone's going to come and get me. And so I was working on those patterns. I was working on feeling fully okay. I remember like the Halloween party that we had, 2 or 3 weeks before I met Bear, and I painted fake blood all down my legs and was like, I'm a woman who bleeds. And like, that was my costume,
One of my favorite all-time Mia experiences, because she was like, I'm going to free bleed, right? Which is basically when you just let your menstrual blood flow without putting a pad or a tampon, and you are just boom, blood. And she's like, I'm going to free bleed at Burning Man. I'm going to go to the temple and I'm going to magnetize my king in my full awesomeness. So like, basically, her brother, who she is, initiating into Burning Man, comes to me while we're at Burning Man. And he's like, Layla, have you seen Mia? And I was like, she's free bleeding all over herself. And she marched to the temple to find her king.
Yeah.
Excellent Mia story. So she didn't find him right then, but you did find him soon after
Couple months later. Yeah.
I want to hear about the sigil and the dragon, and then we'll move forward to the
dragon. Yeah. So part of the practice of manifestation was doing some symbolism and some magic. And I drew this dragon set of wings, this like dragon wings with a heart so that he would be dragon hearted. And I'm not much of an artist. And so whenever anyone would see it, they'd be like, why did you draw the Batman symbol? I was like, it's not the Batman symbol. It's a fucking dragon. And nobody got it. And it was in purple. So of course I like tried to erase it and like redo it. That didn't work. And Bear, my partner, has a tattoo right next to his heart of a phoenix, which is his mystical animal or his mystical familiar, creator, teacher, totem animal. And it's the same color. And it's something that he got when he was like 17 years old that we would both just rather erase, you know, and you can't because it's stuck on there. And so just like wild things like that, that's similar with the obelisk, like stuff that you just can't make up. It's like, no, this is from that spell. This is the person that I manifested with that spell. And those were the things that I was doing and that I was using. It's like, okay, all of that within myself. How can I be dragon-hearted? How can I accept more of the self-hatred? You know, that's a frequency that I know a lot of witches deal with. And you and I definitely both have supported each other in overcoming and learning to love ourselves and acknowledging each other's magic. And so that was really what it was for me, was can I be loved as myself? And can I use the love that I have for myself to provide for myself? Can I step into being a spiritual CEO in service to this magic that I believe in? And so then I started utilizing color magic. So it was a lot about abundance and love for me during that time. So it was
as
like,
it is for everyone.
I
Who
mean,
wants
really,
anything other than
love
abundance
and money?
love, you
Really,
know?
like what are we talking about here? You know, and you know, for me, obviously, the abundance is about freedom. Like I was raised by conscious entrepreneurs who are very philanthropic. So like I give a lot of my money away because it's just how I'm programmed, is like not to hoard and keep it. But I used deep emerald greens and golds in my home with all jewel toned accents everywhere. And then I had like, I'm from Humboldt, as I said, Northern California. And so one of our animals, our like horned animal, is elk. And I got this dope set of elk antlers. And I put that, I had this cool living room that was like a fireplace and it opened into 2 rooms and it had like one on each side. And so I made a whole masculine altar on this side and a whole feminine altar on this side. And this one had like owl wings and soft colors and pampas grass and feathers. And this one had like pillars and, you know, tall candle stands and the elk antlers. And it was all creating this balance. And that's really when you're utilizing symbolism, divination, sex magic, color magic, all of these, anything that has to do with that law of correspondence, it's all about creating the balance between yourself, your internal reality, and then witnessing balance externally so that you can see that union. And you can do this within any gendered partnership, right? It's just about the spectrum where you all operate on the spectrum of masculine and feminine, because we all have both of those poles within ourselves, just in different combinations. And so it was really about finding that balance. And I created balance in every room in my house. So there was like masculine and feminine elements balanced in every room in my house and in myself. And that was really a huge way that it worked for me. Obviously, the gem colors were the love and the passion and the connection and the higher psychic gifts with the deep-rooted power of the red, and like, you know, had a couple of really cool soft orangey things for sacral activations. And like those were really the crystals that I would use, is like the pink, red, orange were the crystals all around. And it was that whole house was an altar. And I met Bear 1 month after I moved in there. And that was a really, really powerful experience. And then we did the same thing. He moved in there and then we made it even more powerful and have just kept building. And now, yes, we're in a gorgeous castle together that is fully like a Ravenclaw common room and a Hogwarts experience. And it's all utilizing these principles to manifest and call in what we desire. And the animals are a big part of that, because every animal has a different significance. We have these like, oh, spirit animals. What does that mean? It's like the way that an owl can turn its head all around, the way that an owl can turn its head all the way around and look, it's like that's a 360-degree perspective. It's not quite 360, but almost, right? So being able to see something from all different angles, being able to know different perspectives. They also soar silently. So it's this capacity to like cut through the darkness and through the shadow. They hunt at night. They see crystal clear at night. So being able to find the wisdom in your darkness, right? That's just one example. There's so many ways that we can understand how animals are communicating with us. And it's a really fun practice when you see them cross your path or come into your life, or you want to use their specific frequency to help you step into something greater. And that's been another really fun part of the divination, and so much wisdom and magic. Like one day I was meditating and really wanted to avoid looking up vultures because I'm just like, ew, vultures. Like,
I love vultures.
Exactly. You would, like, naturally. Like, of course you love vultures. But so I didn't want to look them up. And I came out of this really powerful meditation and a vulture just soared right past my eye line like this. And I was like, okay, I'll look up vultures. And they're the only animal that eats nothing. They only alchemize decay. That's why Tibetan Buddhists hold them as these sacred creatures, because they're karmaless. And not only that, but they're incredibly social. And if they find a really good dead cow, they will fly up to 300 miles to tell a whole other community of vultures, like, come here and share this meal with us. And so we can also experience such transformation of our minds, just like the witches, things that we once judged, just like the demons, things that we once shamed or shut down or made wrong, and having this illuminated new perspective to them and how we can work with those frequencies, again, to just call in and manifest absolutely anything we want.
I knew I loved the vultures. Alchemizing deepest darkness into nutrients, check. Communal-minded and generous, check. Loves a great feast, check.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, there we go. We need to get you a vulture headdress.
Profoundly spiritual and not rejecting of the circle of life, check. All right, so let's break this down.
Yeah.
What ingredients you need to make a powerful spell. So number one, you got to know what you want, right?
Yep. You got to know what you want, and you got to do the healing work to get rid of the things that you don't want.
Okay.
That's the most impactful and powerful ingredient of any spell.
Thanks, you fire witch. All right, so we're going to take this step by step.
Step by step.
Number
Do
one,
the work.
No, hold on. Damn it, Mia. Number one is just knowing what you want.
Yeah, totally.
So number two, you can work with the law of correspondence.
Yep.
To figure out what is it that I think this thing will get me, and how can I heal that thing in myself, embody that thing in myself, be that thing.
Yeah.
Right? And we all know this in the sense of I'm looking for love outside of myself, and how much harder it is because it engenders this like hungry ghost, like even feeling of desperation, versus like when I truly love myself and hold myself in the frequency of love. Of course, I want to be matched with that externally, but I become a vibrational match to the love that I seek. So I would say three then would be getting very honest with yourself about the work you need to do. I have always seen that it is true that if you say you want something and you are not getting it, there is a block in your nervous system, in your ancestral line, in your psyche that runs so deep where that thing is actually coded as terrifying or bad or scary for some reason, right? If I make the money, I'm going to be more powerful. I'm going to be seen. Being seen is scary. If I get the partnership, I'm going to be abandoned when they find out who I am. So your nervous system is encoding that love match as abandonment terror, right? And you don't usually realize this. It's usually unconscious. So being really honest with yourself about what is that healing work that needs to be done. I think number four, which both of us do really well, but is a big piece for a lot of people, is relentlessness.
Yeah.
Right? How do I stay relentless? How do I show the universe how much this means to me, right? Nobody makes a bunch of money, builds a successful business, has an incredible family, takes care of a pet without a lot of care and a lot of dedication. It is a lost art in our society these days to be in devotion to that which we want to see thrive. And yet that is what is required for us to have the things that we want.
Yeah.
And a spell doesn't let you bypass that.
No.
Then number five, I believe, is figuring out what are the symbols of this thing that speak to my nervous system. Because I have seen that symbology is so powerful. It speaks to us in a way that you could be like, I want the power of a cheetah and the ferocity and the intensity and the adeptness. But when you see and feel a cheetah, it's like you go into harmonic resonance with it, right? The same as I could be like, I want to make a bunch of money, but I tell you, orgasming on a bunch of gold coins and $100 bills, it's just a different experience.
Yeah.
So what I've heard from you is you then made rituals and surrounded yourself with the imagery, with the symbology, with the colors that spoke to your unconscious in a very powerful way. I've seen how powerful that is. And then 6, I would say, and you can add to this now, whatever you think might be missing, is to create ritual space.
Yeah.
So you and I actually did do rituals together around calling in your partner. We did money rituals together, and we did them astrologically, right? And then when I was single, you came and had me draw my dream partner and make all the imagery and do, I think it was a new moon in Virgo ritual together to call in my person. So we supported each other in these held ritual spaces as well to really make that intention real, to really call it in.
Yeah. And I think that is such an important aspect. As you were talking about the abandonment, we can be afraid that our partner will abandon us, or that, our friends will abandon us. And coming into ritual community, having people that you can do ritual with who aren't going to laugh at your manifestations or think that it's silly or ridiculous, that was, again, such a gift that you and I gave to one another, is like, okay, hey, let's wake up and let's do this ritual. Okay, 8:45, like we're getting up and we're doing sex magic. And, I'm just not much of a solo practitioner. I'm a coven queen. That's just how I like to operate. And so that was such an important gift, because coming into ritual space is, of course, a shift into an altered state, and you are accessing more of that subconscious realm that's present. As you said, all of the symbols that match with your subconscious significance of that thing, whether it's the animals or the colors, the shapes, the textures, the crystals, any of it, how that responds and what it makes you associate with inside of yourself, that's like the biggest part of the magic. And then when you bring that subconscious connection and activation and awareness into, as you said, a devotional space, a willingness. I talk about this so much in IntuWitchin. There's a big difference between intuition and just hearing a little nudge, and the wisdom and the truth of following it and taking action and doing something about it.
Yeah.
And so all of these spells, all of these elements, the most important part is continuing to try, is continuing to face off with the demons of self-hatred, is continuing to commit to yourself. And what does it look like? Okay, if this spell doesn't work, like you said, you're being taught a lesson. Not you're being punished, you're being invited to see what else is possible. What else could you unearth or excavate from within yourself, so that then when the spell comes to fruition, it is actually far greater, bigger, grander, more expansive than you could have imagined, because who you were when you cast it the first time is gone. That person is not the same anymore. You have transcended to a new level of consciousness, thereby allowing the result of your spell to transcend as well. And so I think that, having community, having people that you can do these rituals with, that you can share your intentions with, is such an important ingredient. It's so powerful. You can listen all day, every day, again, to your intuition, to how it tells you, like, choose these herbs, choose this candle, do it this way. No matter what anybody says, no matter what the color associations are, in IntuWitchin or on YouTube or whatever, you do follow your guidance. You follow your wounding. You follow your triggers. You follow your gratitude. You follow your blessings and your burdens. And that's what allows you to truly create this beautiful, all-encompassing experience that then guides you into, okay, what ritual is necessary? What do I need to do to eradicate this pain so that I can feel worthy of this spell coming true, or so that I can love myself wholeheartedly and then be able to experience that same love and acceptance reflected back to me from my external reality. And I know that was, it takes a lot. There's a lot of resistance. I've certainly, as we're recording, it's right around solstice, these darkest days of the year. And I really noticed that part of the darkness that was rearing its head for me was not being deeply devoted to my rituals. over the last little bit of time. I used rituals to build this massively successful business, and now it takes a lot of time from me. And, some of us have children and gardens and all kinds of things, other creative projects that rely upon us. And yet during this season, I really recommitted and redevoted myself to ritual. And I have seen so much magic. It always rewards you, and it always reminds you when you take the time and give yourself in devotion to the goddess, to your magic, to your expression and transmission of the divine through you in whatever way it looks like, you will be rewarded. You will be blessed. You will be bestowed upon with benevolence and so many gifts of the universe. And that's really been, I think, the greatest gift of doing ritual is that when you do it, when you commit to it, you cannot help but know that magic is real if you're really present there. Even if you don't get exactly what you want right away, just the feeling that arises from being in ritual space is proof of our divine connection and of magic in the universe everywhere at all times. And it's such an incredible gift. And it's, such a beautiful gift that we got to share with one another.
All right, we're going to have a pitch moment, and then we're going to have a
do it.
spiritual moment, and then we're done.
Okay, great.
All right, so pitch moment is IntuWitchin breaks down how to use this deep intuition to follow the magic of the universe.
And how it's speaking a language.
And animals, everything. So if you're curious watching this of how to make this more real, how to know more about it, you can get IntuWitchin everywhere the books are sold.
Yep. Yeah, it's all about the language of the universe. And so it works with the elements. One thing we didn't talk about is how the elements, the earth is your body, the wind is your breath, the water is the blood running through the creeks and streams of your veins, and the fire is the electricity that's making your heart beat in every moment. Spirit is that which animates it all. So it's a really beautiful way of relating to the elements within and all around yourself in order to then use these beautiful divination tools to amplify and actualize your desires in your life.
Great.
Yeah.
And my certification that Mia did is the Vita Sex, Love, and Relationship Coaching Certification. It is a 1-year professional training. And it really is people who are just getting started. They're like, came for the orgasms, stayed for the God realization. And
wait, let me talk about that part, okay? Because it is perhaps, I think, the most well-rounded and all-encompassing program of its kind out there. You are doing deep work on yourself. You are learning how to be a coach. The person that I got coached with, I've been coaching for 10 years, and I got paired with a girl who was a babysitter 3 months before, and she was incredible because she was being trained so well, and we had beautiful sessions together. And then, I already had a thriving business, but watching the business trainings, like watching the amount of information that is provided for everyone, you leave knowing how to run a business. And if you can't run one after that, that's on you because you're given all the tools, but you got to do the digging, So yeah, it's a really, really incredible program. And honestly, for me, it was worth just the first trimester. It was worth it just to have such a reconnection to those incredible rituals and to have the assignment of doing those rituals 3 times a week with yourself so that you can truly move through those patterns and programs and eradicate your own internal suffering. Yeah.
We've been drinking the Mood Play cacao drink. I feel amazing.
I feel great.
Actually, yeah. And I want to thank those of you who go on to invest in my products and programs. That is what allows us to make this podcast for everyone. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And the spiritual moment I promised was this about magic. There's a way to do magic where you're subtly making yourself like a victim to this all-powerful universe, right? Please give me this thing I don't have. You hold the keys to my liberation, right? And empowered magic, what Mia teaches and lives, what I endeavor to teach and live is I am the universe is me. And the universe isn't just here to fulfill all of my desires. The universe is here to teach me. The universe wants me to be the most extraordinary, majestic, expressed version of myself, like a good parent right? A good mother isn't just, I'm going to give you whatever you want whenever you want it. A good mother wants you to have grit and tenacity and wisdom and heart, right? So much more than just getting you a pretty pony or letting you have birthday cake whenever you want it, right? She wants that for you too, but she wants so much more for you. So this path of magic isn't just, I want, give me, give me, give me. It is, how do I become this courageous, open-hearted, magical force that works and co-creates with the universe, which is me. And this makes magic so incredibly powerful. And the last shout out I will give to Mia, because she has been an amazing teacher to me in this, is her incredible reverence for the earth and the planet. And I can humbly say that when I came into abundance, I did it in a way that wasn't as conscientious of the impact on the earth, wasn't as conscientious of consumerism. And I still have a ways to go in that. Mia has lived her abundance with also buying from secondhand shops, with sourcing furniture secondhand, with really being conscientious about where she sources her food from farmers markets. And so she is, to me, an amazing example of a woman living in abundance that is also doing it in deep, deep harmony with the earth. The final thing I will say is that high priestesses were designed to be abundant. They lived in opulent temples. They ran businesses. They owned land. They braided their hair and wore gold. And there was a huge campaign against women and people of various gender expressions having that level of wealth unless they were a king or a priest, a member of the high priest class, because as long as they were struggling economically, what chance did they have of making their way back to their biggest, highest magnificence and divinity? When we're stripped of our basic nervous system's ability to feel safe, we can't pursue our highest magic. And in every traditional culture, that culture supports its spiritual teachers and leaders. We are some of the only spiritual practitioners that were actively persecuted, chased, and harmed by our culture. So not only were we not supported financially and supported in our thriving, we actively had it stripped from us by the most powerful figures in our society. So learning to make money, learning to support yourself, and learning to live in abundance is actually an outrageous claiming of your personal power that you have always deserved.
Yes. Hallelujah. So agree with that. And, I think that Mother Nature has been the greatest teacher for me, in that she is what reminds me that I am nobility, that it is noble to be of service spiritually in this way, and to remember that we are nature. We're not separate from nature. We're not even a part of nature. We are nature, these elements. And yeah, that gift of doing it sustainably, it's hard. It's really hard to furnish a home with everything secondhand because you refuse to buy new things because the earth doesn't need more destruction or stuff on her. It's really hard, y'all. I'm not going to pretend like it's easy. My assistant was like, come on, Mia, let's just go to the Container Store. I'm like, girl, no, I cannot buy plastic tubs brand new, find them on OfferUp, and it's hard. It takes a lot of effort with the way that we've been programmed to live in convenience. And it means so much to me when my sisters really do receive and appreciate it and allow me to call them forward and buy things on Poshmark or ThreadUp or The Real, so that we do vote with our dollars, so that those of us who are coming in, and I feel like it is the duty and obligation of people with money and influence to awaken spiritually. And it is the duty and obligation of people with spiritual awakening to have money and influence. That's how the world is going to change. And so I'm so grateful that we get to just keep learning from each other. And Mother Earth is the mother that we all share. And I love that. I had an amazing conversation with some Mormon kids about exactly what you said. They're like, what do you think the mother wants from us? And I'm like, just like any good mother, she wants us to be happy and to be fulfilled and to be healthy. And she wants us to come home and talk to her and connect with her every once in a while and make her feel like we appreciate her, and for us to find our purpose and to find our magic. And that has certainly been the gift that Mother Earth has provided for me. And I feel so grateful to be an ambassador for her and a voice for her. And it's such a gift to be, just held in sisterhood as standing for Mother Earth in a way that, not everyone does. And so I always appreciate you acknowledging that and the different ways that we get to support each other's aliveness.
Mia Magik, it has been an honor, a pleasure, and an outrageous joyride making magic and ritual with you for the last decade, and may we continue for this lifetime and so
every other. Bless. Thanks, babe.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this Tantric Life. I am Layla Martin. This is the home for the realest conversations about sex, spirituality, polarity, conscious relationships, and all kinds of topics that help us live the absolute most incredible lives. Please check out the next episode. Please go ahead and leave your rating and review on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. It's so helpful when you do that. If you want to stay connected to me, the most helpful supportive thing you can do is to head over to laylamartin.com, sign up with your email address. That connects you to me if you want to study deeper with me, if you want to receive my deeper teachings. I do it predominantly via email. Finally, you can check me out on Instagram at @the Layla Martin. And thank you so much for being here.